John Wick is a 2014 American action thriller film, directed by Chad Stahelski, and written by Derek Kolstad. The film follows John Wick, Keanu Reeves, a legendary hitman who is forced out of retirement to seek revenge against the men who killed his puppy, a final gift from his recently deceased wife. John Wick also stars Michael Nyqvist, Alfie Allen, Adrienne Palicki, Bridget Moynihan, Dean Winters, Ian McShane, John Leguizamo, and Willem Dafoe. John Wick Chapter 1. In New York City, John Wick is grieving the death of his wife Helen, who had arranged for John to receive a beagle puppy to help him cope with her loss. A few days later, a group of Russian gangsters led by Iosif Tarasov accost John at a gas station and fail to intimidate him into selling them his 1969 Boss 429 Mustang. That night, they break into John's home, assault him, kill the puppy, and steal the car. Iosif takes the Mustang to a chop shop to remove its identifying details, but the shop owner Aurelio, recognizing the vehicle, refuses service. Aurelio informs John that Iosif is the son of Viggo Tarasov, the boss of New York City's Russian mafia. Learning of his son's actions, Viggo beats and berates Iosif for incurring John's wrath, revealing John was once a hitman in his employ, and was renowned and feared in the criminal underworld as the Baba Yaga, a ruthless, relentless man of focus, commitment, and sheer will. After John fell in love with Helen, a civilian, Viggo gave him a seemingly impossible task to earn his freedom. He succeeded. John recovers a concealed stash from his former career that includes weapons and gold coins. He refuses Viggo's attempt to make amends for his son's actions and kills the hit squad subsequently sent to his home. As a result, Viggo puts a $2 million bounty on John's head, and his former mentor Marcus is enlisted to kill John. John lodges at the Continental, a luxurious hotel that serves as neutral ground for the underworld and where conducting criminal business is forbidden. The hotel's owner and John's old friend Winston warns John about the dangers of returning to his old life, but also secretly informs John that Iosif is at a nightclub called Red Circle. John infiltrates Red Circle and confronts Iosif, but he is attacked by Viggo's henchman Kirill and is forced to retreat to the Continental for medical attention. As John rests, a hit woman named Ms. Perkins sneaks into his room. Marcus sees Perkins from an adjacent building and fires a warning shot to alert John, who wakes up and subdues Perkins. Perkins reveals Viggo has doubled the bounty for her to kill John in the hotel. She also discloses Viggo has concealed a high-value stash in a church. John hires another hitman named Harry to secure Perkins, but she escapes and kills Harry. At the church, John destroys Viggo's cache of cash and extensive blackmail material. When Viggo arrives to assess the damage, John assaults him and his men, but is hit by Kirill's car and captured. John tells Vigo he will not stop until ISF is dead, because the puppy gave him hope and a chance to not be alone in his grief for Helen. Marcus again intervenes to save John, allowing him to kill Kirill and threaten Vigo into revealing his son's location in a safe house. John assaults the safe house and kills ISF. Marcus encourages John to return to his everyday life, but Perkins witnesses their meeting and reveals Marcus's duplicity to Vigo, who has Marcus tortured and killed, then calls John to taunt him with the details, drawing him back to the city. Winston has Perkins executed for breaking the Continental's rules, then informs John that Vigo is preparing to leave the city by helicopter. John races to New York Harbor, where he fights and mortally wounds Vigo. Resigned to dying from his injuries, John watches on his phone a video of Helen telling him they need to go home. He breaks into a nearby animal clinic, treats his wounds, and adopts a pit bull puppy scheduled to be euthanized before beginning to walk home. John Wick Chapter 2 starts. John Wick recovers his stolen Ford Mustang from Abram Tarasov, the late Vigo's brother, and Wick dispatches Tarasov's men in a violent rampage that heavily damages the Mustang, but spares Tarasov under the promise of peace and returns home. Wick has his Mustang taken for repairs by chop shop owner Aurelio. John is visited by the Camorra crime boss Santino D'Antonio, who reminds him that he helped John complete his impossible task, which allowed John to retire and marry Helen. In return, John swore to a marker, an unbreakable vow symbolized by a blood oath medallion. Santino presents the marker to demand services from John, who declines, so Santino retaliates by destroying John's house with a grenade launcher. John survives and travels to the Continental Hotel in New York City, where Winston reminds him that if he rejects the marker, he will violate one of the underworld's 2 unbreakable rules: no killing on Continental grounds and honoring every marker. John reluctantly accepts his commitment and meets with Santino, who tasks him with assassinating his sister, Gianna, so that he can claim her seat at the High Table, a council of 12 high-level crime bosses. Santino sends Ares, his mute bodyguard, to observe John's mission. In Rome, Italy, John infiltrates Gianna's coronation, confronting her in her dressing room. Faced with certain death, Gianna chooses to slit her wrists. As Gianna dies, John shoots her in the head to end her suffering and fulfill the marker. As John leaves, Gianna's bodyguard, Cassian, recognizes him, realizes that he was sent to kill Gianna, and attacks him. John flees to the catacombs, where he is double-crossed by Ares and Santino's henchmen, who intend to tie up loose ends by killing him. After killing most of the henchmen, John is again pursued by Cassian. Their fight leads them into the Rome Continental's reception area, where conducting business is strictly forbidden, like the New York Continental. As the two share a drink, John explains his reason for killing Gianna. Nevertheless, Cassian promises John a quick and clean death as a sign of professional respect. Julius, the Roman Continental's manager, arranges safe passage for John back to New York as Santino opens a contract for $7 million to kill John, ostensibly to avenge his sister's death. This leads numerous assassins to unsuccessfully attack John, during which Winston visits Santino to complete the marker, thus freeing John from being unable to move against him. Winston warns Santino that he stabbed the devil in the back and that he will be unprepared for John's wrath. Injured from numerous attempted assassinations, John is then confronted by Cassian in the subway. After a vicious fight culminating in Cassian being stabbed in the aorta, John spares him. The badly injured John seeks help from an underground crime boss known as the Bowery King, whose subordinates treat John's injuries. Intrigued by John's intent to kill a member of the High Table, the Bowery King sportingly gives him a Kimber M1911 pistol with only 7 bullets, 1 for each million of the contract. He directs John to an art museum where Santino holds a gala. John pursues Santino throughout the museum, killing his remaining henchmen, including Ares, who gives Santino enough time to escape to the Continental, where he intends to remain indefinitely in its sanctuary. Despite Winston's warnings, the exasperated John shoots and kills Santino in the Continental Lounge. The next day, Winston meets with John and explains that the Camorra has doubled the contract on John, offering it globally. Further, for conducting business on Continental grounds, per the High Table's rules, Winston is forced to declare John excommunicado, terminating all his access and privileges to underworld resources. However, Winston delays activating John's excommunication by 1 hour, giving him a head start, and provides him with a marker for future use. Before leaving, John advises Winston to warn every other High Table assassin